So I'm Kai Price, I'm from Treatwell, and I'm going to talk about scaling ambition at Treatwell, how we're aiming for higher. I've also got to navigate 2 laptops, so bear with me. All right. Boom. For those of you who don't know what Treatwell is, don't worry, I don't prepare for these things either or do my research. We are Treatwell, we are a marketplace for hair and beauty. That means we have 2 sets of customers. We are both fulfilling the needs of consumers who are searching for a treatment on an everyday basis, but also we work a lot with the partners themselves and produce a SaaS product to satisfy their needs. And what I really want to do is I want to talk about this in the form of a journey. The reason why I want to do that is I think every journey is different. And as a result of that, it's not that I'm necessarily telling you how to scale your organisation. I'm just sharing the experience of how we scaled our organisation. I hope that if ever you find yourselves in a similar situation to ours, that this will help you, but it's nothing more than that. Quick history of Treatwell. So Treatwell actually formed in 2008 under the name of Wahanda. It was a business idea that was conceived to have a health and beauty marketplace, but in actual fact, after assessing the market, our founders came to the conclusion that the market was not ready for a health and beauty marketplace. In 2008, iPhones, smartphones weren't readily available. There wasn't actually, people didn't have internet in, say, a salon, which is a fundamental flaw. So what they did is they created a community, a listings page, and built a community around it, and they pivoted to a daily deals. And then when they felt the market was ready, they actually pivoted back to a marketplace. Now, it was at this period, or at this point, that we started to experience a lot of growth. So in 2012, we actually bought a company called Selonium. So they joined Wahanda, and they actually sort of pretty much gave us our SaaS product. Right? From there, we continued to grow. We bought a company called Salonmeister in Germany that sort of catered for the DACH region. And in 2015, we hit 10,000 venues. But then, a bit like a Game of Thrones style situation, everyone started buying each other out. So we bought Beauty Check, Recruit bought us. Recruit are the biggest company most people have never heard of. We then went and bought a company called Treatwell in Belgium and Netherlands. We also bought Zen soon in France, and by December we had doubled our venue base. And then in January we sort of rebranded all the propositions. Now, by this point we were in a situation where we'd partially consolidated our platform, so we actually had some of our platforms migrated into our central stack, but we're actually supporting a number of different sort of platforms as a result of the acquisitions. So as a result of this, our sort of ridiculous growth actually led to us having some serious scaling challenges. And the solution to some of our challenges were actually in direct conflict of one another. So I'm going to take you through some of those challenges and tell you about how we dealt with them. First problem, good problem. Our orders and our venue base were growing incredibly fast. Simply put, we were required to process data, transactions, appointments in volumes that we'd never seen before. And what's more is any sort of outage or problem in production, the implications became a lot larger. Like it was impacting on more customers. I mean, if you just think about it in terms of revenue, the losses were becoming significant. So, my second point leads me to think, I was reading a Forbes-like article recently about Jeff Bezos, and I realised we've actually got quite a lot in common. So we're both in the top 0.1% of boldest people you'll ever meet. I've clearly got an issue with shiny heads. But the actual commonality, which is probably relevant, is that we both found ourselves in a situation where we were confronted by a monolithic platform, right? This means a monolithic set of applications where there's no clearly defined system boundaries. What's more is sitting beneath those monolithic applications, we have a single database, right? So we actually host everything in AWS. We have auto-scaling capabilities. However, you cannot yield the sort of benefits of that if if you have a single database. So we could scale our applications. We could have 1,000 applications running at once to service the traffic, but it still comes down to a single point, and that's a single database, which is a single source of failure. So this is impacting on our customers. It's impacting on nearly a daily basis, particularly on the SaaS product where you can't hide things behind a cache. So we had to resolve this, and we had to take some huge steps and make some fundamental changes in order to do this. And this is where the conflict was, right? In order to ship value to our customers, we had to deliver it on multiple platforms, right? And the thing is, we couldn't migrate the remaining platforms and consolidate them because our primary system was already under the boot. So this was a real problem for us, and these were our scaling challenges at the time. So what did we do about it? We made some tactical fixes to create headroom in our DB. So simply put, for about a month, we just sat there and we looked at our code base, we did statistical analysis, we looked at our database performance, and we made tweaks and fixes to the point where we had enough headroom so that we could move on to some more significant moves. So once we did that, we moved on to applying DDD tactical patterns. So what we did is we applied the DDD tactical patterns to start to create clearer boundaries around our data and to be able to start to decouple our data and give stronger service ownership. Now, the reason why this is important, if you can create a clear system boundary, we can then move on to the third step, which is pick that data up, move it to a separate database. And with good implementation of these tactical designs, we can further offset these new databases with additional caches. So we've gone from a single database to multiple databases, but then the databases are offset by a cache. And finally, what that gave us was the opportunity to consolidate our platforms. So at this point, we're on a single platform, which means we can deliver value to our customers all the time, instead of having to deliver it, say, 3 or 4 times. We're no longer having to deal with stability issues, which meant our teams could focus on delivering value. And despite the number of tactical changes, we had actually formed a strategy as to how we were going to create a scalable architecture. And this was on 2 fronts. The first one was that we were allowed to distribute load across multiple databases. So yeah, it's kind of like many hands make light work, right? And the second one is we'd actually formed the foundation of a loosely coupled architecture. What we needed to do was start to take it up. I'll talk about that a bit more later. But scale at this point was purely a technical issue, right? We made a clear and conscious decision that in our current circumstance, we were going to address the aforementioned issues in order to get into a position of stability so that we can then focus on the next iteration of scale. But without addressing these fundamental issues, we could not have progressed and pushed dials on any other situation. So at this point, it's late 2017 or mid to late 2017. We're in a position of stability. And we're asking ourselves, what's next, right? And what are our constraints? Not money, we're all well funded. Not support from the rest of the organisation. We have a great relationship with the wider organisation. It's not a them and us. Like we are one company, and they trust us. So the next logical thing is to understand the ambition of the organisation and what our role is to play in that. So Treatwell's ambition is to grow exponentially. To achieve this, tech was going to need to remove constraints from our platform and that prevents us from doing so. So to do this, we need to support a wider range of partners, like move away from our traditional partners, start to support every partner, for example, mobile therapists. Right? We need to expand our reach from just a handful of cities to being able to roll out to multiple cities across the world whenever we want. And we needed to support unprecedented amounts of data. Now for tech to achieve this, we're going to have to become more ambitious. We need to aim to deliver smarter and faster than ever before. We were going to have to think bigger. In order to increase our capacity as a team, we need to go from this to this. And we're going to have to think better. We want to go from a good team to a great team, so that we can not only increase our capacity, but maximize our potential and mitigate those diminishing returns as you continue to hire more people. But to grow as a team and to become great, we were going to have to scale everything, right? if our previous encounter with scale was purely tech, our next encounter was going to be much more multifaceted. There's no silver bullet to scale, right? We need to push dials on multiple fronts. So broadly speaking, we break this down into 3 categories: ways of working, architecture, and culture. Although I'm communicating them as distinct categories, they're deeply independent, right? If I could click my fingers and overnight have a loosely coupled architecture where people could deploy completely freely and independently and when they want, that's going to yield next to no returns if we don't change our way of working, so we have more of a lean mindset, deliver in increments, and actually sort of align this with high bandwidth communication channels and distinct domains. So starting with ways of working, we reorganized our team. So we have an office in Vilnius in Lithuania, and the first step we did is we restructured our companies or our tech team so that in Vilnius they became the center of excellence for supply, the partners, and in London we became the center of excellence for the marketplace. Now what we thought this would give us was an identity for each office and hopefully a conduit for communication and collaboration and a shared purpose. And then as we continued to scale, it was much like many organizations, we moved from a team that just sort of covered a platform, so marketplace web, and we started to give distinct domains so that people could get a deeper understanding of what it is they're working on and really optimize that. We encourage teams to define their way of working. So in order for teams to operate with freedom and autonomy, we want them to feel empowered to experiment in a fail-safe environment. Having to work within the constraints of a one-size-fits-all development process or working practices can slow teams down. So we optimized for autonomy, and we wanted teams to self-organize. So de facto ways of working are now being redefined on a team-by-team basis. So teams can decide whether Scrum versus Kanban, how they visualize their workflow, their definition of done, Jira versus a physical board, whether they pair program by default. Like we're trying to enable them to define anything. Next thing we needed to do is we wanted to start delivering value to users more often. So still to this day, we have a 2-week release cycle, right? The problems with this are that releases are becoming riskier. As we get more employees, it's like a big old bucket of risk, right? You start throwing things in, and the more people we got, the bigger that bucket gets, and inevitably someone's going to kick it over, right? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to start to mitigate that. And also, we're not maximizing our full potential if people are only delivering every 2 weeks. Like it is you know, I think when it was first said that 2 weeks as a cadence was fast, we've progressed massively since then, right? 2 weeks is potentially too slow for feedback loops. It doesn't enable organizations to be able to iterate, get feedback, and then course correct. So we opted to address this on 2 fronts. First front was simply to break up our architecture, but that's a huge task. The second one was to challenge teams to divorce themselves from the 2-week release cycle. Oh, cheers, mate. I was getting a dry throat. So we wanted teams to challenge the mindset of the 2-week release cycle. So stop thinking about product delivery in 2-week batches. Right? Instead, focus on deliver value in smaller batches more often. And use this as an opportunity to identify parts of the platform where we can focus on investing in order to accelerate small and more frequent releases. So using the OKR framework, we define something called point releases. So a point release is a release that is both planned and not within our 2-week release cycle. And simply by challenging the team to change their mindset, if you see in April is where we posed the question, we've over doubled our release frequency. I need to really stress about this. There is very little technical investment that's gone into this. Just simply challenging the teams to think about divorcing themselves from the 2-week increments had an amazing effect. So knowing that they can release when it suits them, they've started to rethink about how they go about delivering product. They're now thinking about adopting a more lean mindset. So teams are delivering to smaller subsets of users with minimal requirements, and then they gather feedback and iterate. Our major releases actually become significantly smoother because we're actually taking things out of that bucket of risk. Next thing we want to focus on was a quality-first mindset. So we believe that a hallmark of a high-performing team is to have a quality-first mindset. If our teams have that, then we can build quality into our process, which will empower teams to move quickly, but with confidence. So our teams are seeing quality assurance now as a collective responsibility as opposed to a role. And with the help of our Agile coaches, we've introduced practices like ATDD, so we can ensure there's complete alignment between all stakeholders before a story's even started. We're running workshops and experiments that encourage teams to sample practices such as pair programming, mod program, TDD. And we're investing heavily in introducing testing capabilities that we were previously missing and allowing us to shift feedback left. And we're running these tests continuously. For anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive fan of Jez Humble, so continuous delivery capabilities are really important to me. So continuous delivery, if done well, reduces integration time, risk, and the cost of software delivery. It minimizes time spent on repetitive tasks and allows developers to effectively focus on problem solving, which is what they're there to do. So this follows on nicely from the quality first mindset, because building quality into your process is one of the underlying principles of continuous delivery. But in addition to that, we're increasingly moving towards trunk-based development, which simplifies integration, encourages engineers to integrate fast and often and get that feedback. We revamped the way we manage configuration. So we're now having a lot more continuity and consistency between all of our environments and reducing the risk of some sort of misconfiguration in production. And we're increasing the level of automation in our deployment process, again, to reduce the risk of mistakes, to let engineers focus on solving problems. Next up, architecture. I guess as the director of engineering, this is what I've got a bit of a soft spot for. We're trying to move more towards a decoupled system. So a decoupled system or a loosely coupled system should empower teams to own their services, operate autonomously, and align application with business functions. It leverages high bandwidth communication channels, such as stated by Conway's law, and it allows teams to make decisions within their context without oversight and without too much coordination. So I spent ages talking about this, right? We know what good looks like. We've proven that we can operationally support new applications in this model. We know that an application is good if it's well defined, it's discrete, it's easy to build, test and deploy, it's simpler to comprehend, removing the cognitive load of what a monolithic system can potentially put on an engineer. But our real challenge is to start to apply that to our monolith, to our legacy systems. So we need to focus on where the high code churn is and start to extract these applications, pull them out, and start to be able to empower the teams to move quicker based on what they're working on. But with loosely coupled systems, read microservices, comes some challenges. You increase the complexity of an application architecture. So in order to mitigate that, we need to increase observability and traceability. We want to be in a position where in production, we can restore a service or we can restore a problem as quick as possible. So there's as little impact on our customers as possible. And to be great, we actually want to see the problem before it occurs. So we're starting to surface the metrics so that we can start to identify a problem as it's becoming prevalent before our customers see it. And finally on this, it's our culture. As we transition from a small, tight-knit team to a larger, distributed and more complex group of individuals, we want to articulate what's important to us and why. It's simple. We spend a significant amount of time at work. It's in all of our interests if our team's happy and motivated. To achieve this, we want to create a culture of safety and openness. So we ask the team to articulate what that means in the form of our values. And defining the values is the easy part, once you've got the meeting rooms. We need to live by them, right? So that means celebrating those who embody our values, who operate with respect and with compassion, but it also means that we do have a responsibility to challenge those who don't. And we also believe that a hallmark of a high-performing team is a continuous improvement mindset. But it's not just fair to tell a team to continuously improve. We need to foster an environment that encourages that. So we want people to be engaged, happy, motivated, to be able to invest in themselves and grow, and to understand what great looks like and empower them to realise that. So we've rolled out our personalised development plans to the whole team. So the first version, they're not mandatory, but we do encourage all team members to collaborate with their line manager in order to craft it. And it's centred around what they want and what their ambitions are. And it's a commitment from us to them, and it's not just giving them a budget, it's giving them the time to focus on their own development. And we've measured this by our peak on learning score. So in January 2019, it was 7.6, and the last round it was up to 8.1. So we are making progress. It's a good start, but there's so much more to do. We need to move away from our hacky spreadsheets to an actual established learning and development platform. So we're investigating Learnaby. And we want to start to socialise learning and development a lot more. So at the moment it's very much an individual thing. But there are common themes. There is something quite inspiring and motivating. You can maximise, I guess, the value of your time spent if we can do this in a group activity. And hire the best. Everyone says it because it's true, right? There's that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, leave. I've never had that misfortune. And I did used to be a dog sitter. We want to hire people who share our ambitions, who know what great looks like, right? Who feel they can help us get there and share our ambitions to be part of a great team. So we're evolving our interview process to reflect our ambitions and the identity of people that we would like to work with us. People who are going to be custodians of a culture based on collaboration and respect. And we also want new starters to be set up for success. We want to leverage that innate desire to deliver value as close to day one as possible. So we're constantly trying to evolve our onboarding process. But hiring's hard. Anyone who's worked in recruitment or had to hire knows that especially in London, it's competitive and it's hard. It's really hard to find great people. So to scale, we need great people, and we need to be known in order to do that. So our ambition is to be exceptional, and we want to be known for it. And the brand's not just about potential candidates. We also want to be proud. We want the team to be proud of what they do, and for them to be able to identify with our brand. It's nice to take it home to your mum. Me personally, I'd be happy to get over 19 Twitter follows. That's true. But if I could sum up what I guess I would like to achieve is I would like to create a culture of ambitious, continuous improvement. This is a huge and potentially abstract concept. So in order to make these aspirations more tangible, we actually decided to give it a name. And we've named our ambition Blue Star. And Blue Star is as much of a journey as it is a destination. So this graph has been given many names. None of them are great. I've settled with Puddle of Potential. I also realised we're missing a little line. Right, bear with me. There's a big old blue line that goes. Right. That's annoying. But what we're trying to depict with this is that you can't achieve Blue Star without investment. So Blue Star is, or the blue line that I've tried to show to you, which annoyingly isn't there, that depicts product output, right? So if we're gonna become great, we need to invest in our people, our ways of working, our platform, and that's going to impact on product output. But it's the right thing to do now to ensure the success of the future. You're fucking kidding me. There it is. I'm slightly worried why I've got two sets of slides now. As well as giving it a name, stating our commitment, we also wanted to socialise Blue Star. So we held a Camp Blue Star in Hackney Wick, where we had various workshops and activities that helped bring some of these principles and values to life, but really try to inspire the team to sort of start to imagine what better looks like and what their role is in achieving that. So that's kind of like what we've been doing over the last sort of year and a half, and I actually started writing a bunch of slides about what's left to do, and after about 5.5 slides of pure text, I decided just to say all the things. Yeah? There's honestly so much to do. I won't go through them. I'm happy to talk about the most important things afterwards, or anything that you guys might be interested or get any feedback. And I've only got a few more slides because I'm running out of time. I'm actually completely unaware of time, I realise. So I thought I'd just sort of try and share what we've learned and package it as some advice, but it's advice that we quite often have to remind ourselves of. So the first piece is like focus on what's important and do it well. Right? Knowing what great looks like is one thing, achieving it's a whole nother matter. So if you aspire to be a great, almost overnight, the opportunities for improvement you'll see everywhere. Right? You won't be able to do it all at once. The best thing you can do is make a clear and conscious decision about what's most important given your current situation. Whatever you do, afford yourself the time to do it well. And be clear about what you are focused on, why, and the trade-offs that you have accepted, and communicate exactly that to the rest of your team. You can always course correct, right? This isn't a commitment for the rest of time, right? Be fine, trust your convictions, and understand that you'll use evidence to change course. And finally, be prepared for the fact that the very meaning of scale will change, it will evolve over time. And my penultimate slide, which my colleague Colin now calls Pricey's Law, is something that sort of increasingly crops up in my mind. So if any organisation relentlessly pursues continuous improvement, will they ever consider themselves great? I don't know the answer to that. Answers on the back of a postcard if you can help, but I do hope one day to be able to answer this. And apart from that, thanks for listening.